Kick timing is an underappreciated yet critical skill for fast swimming. And when it comes to freestyle kick timing, it can be particularly confusing. There are multiple strategies that elite swimmers use, and they can all be equally effective depending on the context. The key is to understand the different types of kick timing in freestyle, why they may be happening, and the appropriate context in which they should be used. Let's take a deep dive into freestyle kick timing, exploring those very topics. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. The main difficulty in determining effective kick time in freestyle is that there are multiple ways to do it. There are swimmers that use 2-beat kick timing, there are swimmers that use 4-beat kick timing, and there are swimmers that use 6-beat kick timing. And what that means is within a given stroke cycle, there's 2, 4, or 6 flutter kicks. The most common and the most effective kicking strategy, particularly for events that are 200 meters or less, is 6-beat kick timing. And when you look more closely at it, 2-beat kick timing and 4-beat kick timing are actually versions of 6-beat kick timing. They'll use the same basic timing, but they'll leave out 2 or 4 kicks throughout the stroke cycle. The kicks they do use tend to occur at the same time as they would if they were using a full 6-beat kick. If you can understand 6-beat kick timing, it's a lot easier to see what's happening with a 2-beat or a 4-beat kick. To make things more interesting, there's not just one version of 6-beat kick timing. There's actually 3 different versions that are commonly used at the elite level. As I've talked about in the past and others have noted as well, there's different ways to time the arms when swimming freestyle. You can use more overlap timing where one arm is a little bit more patient in the front of the stroke, typically seen in longer events. Swimmers can use oppositional stroke timing where the arms are moving more or less at opposite points in the stroke cycle. And swimmers can also use a gallop timing where one arm is being a little bit more patient in the front, using more of an overlap timing, and then the other arm is using more of an oppositional timing. And no surprise, when swimmers use different arm timing, the kick timing of their 6-beat kick tends to change as well. So what we'll do is take a look at those key kick timing points throughout the stroke cycle and how it relates to the arm timing. Let's check it out. So we'll start off here with the 6-beat kick timing that's typically seen when swimmers are overlapping the arms in the front of the stroke. Typically this will be in distance events, but as we'll see, there are some sprinters that actually use this stroke timing as well. This stroke timing is typically used because it's a little bit more efficient, allows swimmers to stay longer. And what's interesting is that the sprinters that use this stroke timing and consequently the kick timing tend to be very, very good at the back half of their races, not so good at the front half of their races. So again, different stroke styles have consequences, both positive and negative. So the key timing point we're going to pay attention to here is when the left arm enters, the right leg is going to kick. And so what's happening is when the opposite hand enters, the opposite leg kicks. And that's going to be the key timing point. So right there, we see the leg has kicked on the right side as the left arm extends forward. And then as we switch sides here, we're going to see the opposite. Right here, the right arm is entering, the left leg is kicking. And that's going to be the key defining feature of this 6-beat kick timing, which is going to be quite different when we look at oppositional kick timing. So every time this swimmer enters the water, the opposite leg is going to kick. We're going to see it right again here. So boom, right there. So the one side the leg kicks, the other side the arm enters. And again, one more time on the opposite side, boom, right there. We've got the right hand entry and the left leg kick. The other key point to watch here is right when the swimmer sets up the stroke, right when they establish their catch, that's when the leg on the same side is going to kick down. And so you can see the right leg is pivoted here, it's up, it's ready to kick down, and the right arm is set up, it's ready to pull, and then boom, they're happening at the same time. So when the kick finishes, the swimmer has finished most of their pull, the elbow is to the side, and at this point, they're kind of transitioning to the finish of the stroke and to the exit of the stroke. So if we watch the other side, we're going to see the left arm is going to set up right there. The left leg is getting ready to kick, and then boom, that left leg kicks. He's midway through the pull right there. He's getting through it. And so those 2 key points are synced up in the stroke. So again, we've got the entry and opposite leg kick. And that's happening right here. And at the same time, the same side arm is pulling. So when the right leg kicks, the left hand is entering and the right hand is pulling. And that's going to happen on both sides. So again, when the right arm enters, the left leg kicks, and he's midway through the pull on the left side. So that's going to be representative of 6-beat kick timing when swimmers are using an overlap stroke timing. And typically that's seen during distance events and occasionally with some sprinters. So we'll take a look at this timing from a few different swimmers just to demonstrate that it's not just one outlier swimmer that's executing those skills. So we watch this swimmer here. Clearly he's got overlap timing. His hand enters. He's still at the top of the pole. And see the same thing here on the other side. So his arms are not moving in opposition. So what we'll see if we watch this left hand enter, the left leg kicks right there as he enters. So the hand enters, the left leg kicks. And as we talked about, guess what's happening on the right side? He's executing his pull as he kicks there too. So we've got the same timing here as we did with the other swimmers. Now if we switch to the other side, the left leg is up, ready to kick. Right hand enters, boom, there's that kick. And he's in the meat of the pull here as well. So we've got the same timing, different swimmer, and then we'll see it again here. Boom, the right leg kicks, the left hand enters, and then he's midway through the pull on the right side. So one more time, one more on the opposite side. Boom, there's the kick, there's the entry on the opposite side, and he's midway through the pull. So different swimmer, different angle, and we're seeing the same kick timing, and both swimmers are definitely using a 6-beat kick, and they're both being effective with their kick timing. They're just choosing to execute that kick in a certain way. If we watch the swimmer at the top here, former world record holder over 1,500 meters, so clearly a distance swimmer, but here in this race on his way to winning an Olympic gold over 200 meters. So a much shorter distance, but we're gonna see the same kick timing here. So if we watch his left leg, boom, there's the entry on the right side. And as you can see, halfway through the pull on the left side. Now if we switch to the other side, boom, there's the kick right there. There's the entry on the left side. And then we've got the pull right as the kick happens there on the right side. So again, the other side, left leg kicks, right hand enters, left arm pulls. And then on the other side, we've got the left hand entry, the right arm pull, and the right leg kick. So same timing, he's still using a 6-beat kick, using it over a shorter distance, and still being really effective with that kick. So again, we still have the overlap timing in the front. We can see that there. We still have a 6-beat kick, and so we're gonna see the same 6-beat kick timing. So another 200-meter swimmer here in the middle of our screen, also an Olympic champion, also a world record holder. So we're gonna see the right leg is kicking, left hand is entering, and then the right arm is pulling. So same timing here, and then we'll see it on the other side. Boom, there's the kick on the left leg, the entry on the right, and the pull on the left arm. So you can see, definitely has overlap timing here. She's definitely using a 6-beat kick, and so we're gonna see the same kick timing. So right here, right hand enters, left arm pulls, left leg kicks. So same timing, different swimmer, 200 meters, not a true distance event, but still using that same kick timing to be really effective. Has a really strong kick, but again, being really patient in the front of the stroke, and we're gonna see the change in the 6-beat kick timing as compared to when we look at swimmers that are using more of an oppositional or sprint timing. They will still have a 6-beat kick, but the timing is going to be different. So this is a former Olympic gold medalist over 100 meters. Again, known for really good back halves, known for being a little bit more patient in the front of the stroke. We're gonna see the same 6-beat kick timing. So you can see here, this is from a world championship final. This is the second 50. He's sprinting, but he's still using that overlap arm timing. You can see it right there. And now if we watch, boom, the left leg kicks, the right hand enters, the left arm is halfway through the pull. And if we go to the other side, you can see right there, the kick is primed there, boom, snaps down, the left arm enters, the right arm is midway through the pull. So much shorter distance compared to 400, 1500, or even 200, and we're still seeing the same kick timing. Again, left arm pulls, left leg kicks, right hand enters, and those again are the primary characteristics. And if we watch the arms here, we can see again, there's a lot more overlap timing, and so that's why we're gonna see that kick timing. And then taking a look at it one more time, boom, left leg kicks, right hand enters, left arm is halfway through the pull. Even though this is a sprint, because of the arm timing the swimmer is using, we're gonna see a little bit more of a distance-oriented 6-beat kick. So one more example of this overlap-based kick timing. This is a 100-meter swimmer, current world record holder, and very, very good over the second 50. He tends to use a little bit more of an overlap timing. We're gonna see that reflected in his kick timing. So you can see out here, he's out front on the left arm. He's got the left leg ready to hammer down, and then boom, we get the entry on the right side. He's midway through the pull. We've got the same kick timing. And when we go to the other side, we're gonna see the same thing. Boom, there's the right leg kicking. The left arm is way out in front, and then the right arm is pulling. So same kick timing, even though this is a sprint. And in this case, this is video of the fastest sprint over 100 meters ever. So same thing on the opposite side now. Boom, he's got the left arm pulling through, the left leg kicking, and the right arm extended forward. So we've still got a 6B kick, but because he's being a lot more patient in the front of the stroke, he's actually going to use 6B kick timing that's more commonly seen in longer events. Again, the arm timing is going to dictate the 6B kick timing. They will still use a 6B kick, but the timing in terms of when the kicks happen relative to what the arms are doing is going to be a little bit different. So let's take a look at a representation of more oppositional or more sprint-based timing. This is footage from a 200-meter race. This is an international medalist over 200 meters, Olympic champion in other events that are not freestyle. And even though it's a longer distance, she's going to use a more continuous stroke cycle. She's not going to be as patient in the front of the stroke. And as a result, we're going to see different stroke timing. So while there's trends in terms of the events and the kick timing that we'll see, there are definitely exceptions. There aren't as many people that are using this timing over 200 meters. Just like in the previous two examples, there aren't as many swimmers using a more distance-oriented timing in order to sprint. So the big thing to notice here is upon entry, we're going to see the same side kick. So the left hand enters, the left leg kicks, and then we go to the other side, boom, the right arm enters, the right leg kicks. So it's different. Instead of going opposite arm, opposite leg, it's same arm, same leg. And the other aspect is the second kick right there on the left side happens in the beginning of the pull. It happens right when swimmers set it up. It doesn't tend to happen midway through the pull. So her arm is still in front of her shoulder here and she's taking that second kick. And then the third kick tends to happen lined up with the exit of the hand. So boom, kick 1 upon entry, kick 2 upon initiation of the pull, and then kick 3, boom, there on the finish of the pull. So if we watch what's happening on the other side, boom, there's the first kick upon entry. We've got the second kick near the front of the stroke, and then the third kick right there is happening as the hand enters. So very different kick timing based upon the arm timing. With this swimmer is a really clear representation of this, and so what we'll see, if we watch the near side, the right side, boom, there's kick number 1 upon entry. Boom, there's kick number 2 upon the setup of the stroke. And boom, there's kick number 3 upon exit. So a really clean example of really solid kick timing here. And if we go back and if we watch the other side, boom, there's the entry and then the same side kick. And then we've got the second kick with the setup of the stroke. And then we've got the third kick right there with the finish of the stroke. And if we watch this swimmer's arm timing, we can see that there's a lot less overlap in the front of the stroke. So right there is where the hand enters. And then right there is when the hand enters. So the timing of the arms is quite different. And as a result, we're going to get different kick timing. So walking through it one more time, we've got a kick upon entry right there, kick upon the setup of the stroke, and then boom, to finish a kick upon the exit of the hand. So very different kick timing, again, equally effective if it matches the arm timing. So different swimmer, same timing, kick upon entry there, and then kick upon the setup of the stroke, and then kick upon the finish of the stroke. And if we watch the other side, boom, there's the same side kick upon entry, another kick there on the setup of the stroke, and then boom, there's the kick upon finish. So same timing, different swimmer, we've got the same dynamics. So one more example here, we've got boom, left hand enters, left leg kicks, second kick there happening on the setup of the stroke, and then boom, there's the finish of the stroke. Again, different swimmer, same timing. And so if we watch the other side, we've got kick upon entry right there, kick upon the setup of the stroke, and then boom, kick upon the finish of the stroke. Different swimmer, same timing. Now here's where it gets a little bit more interesting when we talk about the gallop. So again, they combine different arm timing. They use an overlap timing on one side, and they use a sprint-based timing on the other. As a consequence, they're going to adapt both aspects of 6B kick timing, and we'll see the kick timing upon entry is going to be a little bit different. So if we watch here, we can see on this side, we've got overlap timing. He's just about to begin the pull on the left side when the right side enters the water. But then if we watch on the other side, boom, he enters the water with the left arm and the right arm is finishing. So we're going to see different kick timing on both sides because there's different arm timing on both sides. So if we watch the left arm, which again is using that sprint timing, boom, the same side kick happens. And if we watch the other arm, boom, there's the left kick and the right hand enter. So in this case, the left arm is kicking upon entry for both arms. So on the left side, it's the same side kick. On the right side, it's the opposite side kick. In all the previous examples, the swimmers were not galloping and they were using the same kick timing on both sides. So again, if we watch on this side, boom, the left hand enters, the left leg kicks, and then on the right side, the left leg kicks, the right hand enters. So they're still using the same underlying kick timing, but they've combined it so that on one side, we've got 6-beat kick timing that's more in line with the oppositional sprint timing. And then on the opposite side, we've got kick timing that's more in line with the overlap or the more endurance timing. Now we'll take a look at another swimmer that's galloping to show that the same dynamics exist. On this side here, we've got overlap timing because the right arm is entering as the left arm begins to pull. And then on the opposite side, we're going to see the left hand enter, and he's pretty much done the entire pull on the right side. So the two sides are not using the same timing. Now when the left hand enters, boom, we see the same side left kick, because again, that's going to be his sprint timing side. And then when he comes over on the other side, boom, right hand enters, left leg kicks. So like our previous swimmer, they're both breathing to the right, so that's going to dictate how they set up their timing. The left leg is kicking upon entry on both sides. When it's the left arm, it's the same side. When it's the right arm, it's the opposite side. So one more stroke cycle here, boom, same side kick, same side entry, and then boom, we've got opposite kick, opposite entry. So the timing of the arms is going to be what's driving the timing of the kick. Every single swimmer we've looked at so far has used a 6-beat kick. However, they're choosing to time that kick differently dependent upon how the arms are timed. And the easiest place to see it is what happens upon entry, because good swimmers are going to be kicking upon entry. The question is whether it's going to be with the opposite leg or the same side leg, and that's going to be determined by the arm timing. Now let's take a brief look at what happens when swimmers choose to do a 2-beat kick or a 4-beat kick. So this swimmer here uses a gallop. So what we'll see is right there, we've got the same side kick with the same side entry. She's breathing to her right, so that same side kick, that same side entry is going to happen on the left. And then on the other side, we're going to see the opposite. Right hand enters, left leg kicks. Now what this swimmer does is she leaves out kicks. So she still has that same entry timing, but she's not going to take all 6 kicks. So if we track it from here, from this position, we've got 1 kick there on the right, 1 on the left, 1 on the right, and then boom, we're back to baseline. So she's only taken 4 kicks. So she's not necessarily going to execute all the kicks throughout the stroke cycle, but she will execute those entry kicks, and she will execute them at the same time as she normally would if she was using a full 6-beat kick. The previous swimmers that we just looked at that galloped use the exact same entry kick timing as she does. She just chooses to leave out 2 kicks throughout the stroke cycle. So again, boom, kick upon same side entry here, and then the opposite kick, opposite entry on the right side. Same basic kick timing, she's just leaving out kicks, only taking 4. However, she's still taking those 2 really important kicks upon entry. Now we'll take an example of a 2-beat kick here, and this swimmer was actually used as an example earlier, swimming over 200 meters and executing a 6-beat kick, and he was doing it with the opposite kick timing. He's a distance swimmer. This is going to be an example of a distance event. However, now he's only doing 1 kick and then 2 kicks. So he's only using a 2-beat kick here. He's got a couple little leg twitches, but I'm not sure that they really qualify as kicks, but the kicks happen at an important time. Boom, entry on the right side, kick on the left side, and then boom, entry on the left side, kick on the right side. So just like our previous example, he's retaining the same entry kicks as when he uses a full 6-beat kick. He just chooses not to execute the other kicks. In this particular race, which is a world record at the time and still the second fastest 1,500 meters ever, he used this kick timing throughout most of the race. Over the last 100, the last 50 meters, he started to use a 6-beat kick timing, and the entry timing was exactly the same. However, he started to add those other 4 kicks in to get a little bit more propulsion, to create a little bit more speed. He didn't need to save energy at that point. So when it comes to kick timing, a lot of it is geared towards what's happening upon the entry, and the leg that's kicking is often determined by the stroke timing of the arms. When it comes to kick timing, in most situations with most swimmers, there is a rhyme and a reason to what's happening, and most of it is dictated by the arm timing that they're choosing to use. Of course, there are some really fast, really effective swimmers that do not conform to these kicking rhythms. In some cases, it may be due to mistakes that could lead to faster swimming if corrected. And in some cases, they may have just stumbled upon a solution that for whatever reason works really well for them. Regardless, the majority of swimmers are using a predictable kick timing. And if we want to help our swimmers swim as fast as possible, it makes sense to help them learn how to use a kick timing that matches their arm timing. Effective backstroke requires effective kicking. And unlike freestyle, most backstrokers will choose to use the same kick timing. With effective kick timing, the whole stroke works better. Kick timing is important in every stroke because it helps synchronize all the different movements and it provides swimmers with a sense of rhythm. In backstroke, there's almost always 6 kicks per stroke cycle, and those kicks are performed at certain times in the stroke to provide as much fluidity and speed as possible. The kick timing is not only important for synchronizing the arms and the legs, it's also important for synchronizing the arms themselves. As we'll see, 2 of the 6 kicks occur at very specific points within the stroke cycle, and both arms need to be in very specific positions, which is critical for the overall arm timing. So let's check out exactly what that timing looks like. So we'll take a look at several different swimmers from several different angles to give you a better perspective of what's happening and to demonstrate that these movements, this timing is conserved across different elite swimmers. So we'll start looking at the close arm here on the left side, and what we'll see is that one of the kicks happens at a key point right when the swimmer sets up their stroke. So as that left leg finishes, as the left leg finishes kicking right there, that's when the swimmer finalizes setting up their stroke, and that's right when they begin to start applying pressure backwards. So that's going to be a key timing point. Swimmers are going to finish their same-sided kick as they finish setting up the stroke. And then the next kick is going to happen as the swimmer finishes the stroke. So right as the left leg finishes kicking, right about there, a little bit difficult to see with the angle, but you can see that the foot is moving up, and right there, that's when the left hand finishes and the arm is completely straight. So when the left leg finishes kicking, the left hand is going to finish the pull. And then it will notice on the opposite side, what's happening is boom, that's when the opposite hand enters. So right when the left leg finishes kicking and the left hand finishes pulling, the right hand is entering the water. So that's going to be the point where we see the connection from the left side of the body to the right side of the body. That kick is synchronizing the finish of the pull on one side and then the entry of the opposite arm on the other side. So again, as we'll go through here, we'll see the same thing on the left side. Boom. We're finishing the kick right as the left hand finishes the setup of the stroke. And you can see right there, there's that toe flip at the end of the kick, and we're right at the finish of the catch. He's ready to pull, and then he starts pulling there, and then boom, at the end of the pull, that's where we see the left leg kick all the way, and then we see the right hand enter. So 3 really critical points there is that the left leg is finishing the kick as the left hand sets up the catch. And then the left leg is kicking again. The next kick on that side is going to happen like we see here when the left hand finishes the pull. And of course, the timing of backstroke, the rotational timing of backstroke is so important. So when the left hand finishes, that's when the body is going to finish the rotation. And then on the opposite side, the right hand is entering on that rotated position at the exact same time. And so the kick is linking those 2 movements together. And then the third kick is going to happen right there when the arm is straight up overhead. One final connection to observe is that after the swimmer finishes setting up the stroke, they finish the left leg kick, they're going to start pulling here, and as they pull, they're going to kick with the opposite leg on the opposite side. So right there, you can see pulling through, and then the right leg is kicking, the right leg's coming all the way up, and that's occurring during the meat of the pull. And then once swimmers start to transition to the finish of the stroke, that's when the same side leg is going to kick. So those kicks are all synchronized to key points in the stroke cycle, and that timing is conserved across almost all elite swimmers. So while swimmers are most definitely executing a 6-beat kick, the timing of those kicks is also really, really important as well. So we'll watch another swimmer here, and then as we see, finishing the catch on the right side, finishing the kick on the right side. And now as they pull through into the finish, there's the finish on the right side, the kick on the right side, and then we see the opposite arm, the left arm is entering the water at that time. And then we'll see the kick there as she recovers on the right side and then getting back into it. And again, same thing, kicking as she sets up the catch. And then as she pulls, we can see the left leg kick through there. So the opposite leg is kicking during the pull itself and then transitioning to the same side kick as she finishes. And again, connecting that opposite arm entry with the kick on the right side. So different swimmer, same exact timing, using the same 6-beat kick timing, because ultimately that is what's going to be most effective for the vast majority of swimmers. Now, if we watch the left side, she's entered here. You can see the left leg bends there. She sets up the stroke. The left leg kicks, kind of disappears behind the right leg. And then as she pulls through, there goes the right leg kick, and then you can see the left leg kick is getting ready to go, and then boom, that happens. The left leg kicks, the left hand finishes, the right arm enters. So same timing, same skill set, and those are ultimately the points we're looking for when evaluating whether a swimmer is executing an effective 6-beat kick in backstroke. If the timing is completely off, they may be using a 6-beat kick, but it's probably not one that's ultimately going to help them swim as fast as possible. So one more swimmer here, and then setting up the stroke on the right side. There's that kick on the same right side, pulling through, and then boom, there's the finish on the right side, the kick on the right side, and the entry on the left side. If we go through the stroke cycle, there's that kick as she recovers the arm's more or less straight up ahead, and that's when the kick finishes on the same side. Then back on this right side, there's the setup of the stroke, there's the right side kick, and then we're watching as she pulls, there's the left leg kicking through as she executes the pull, transitions to the finish, then we see the same-sided right leg kick. So same exact timing here, same exact 6-beat rhythm. The kicks are happening at the same time, and they're happening at specific times to help swimmers either execute the pull, set up the catch, finish the stroke, or quickly switch to the other side of the body. Another important note to make is that the swimmers that we've looked at have been swimming different events, have been swimming over different distances, yet they're still executing the same kick timing. So in backstroke in particular, the kick timing tends not to change depending on the event or depending on how fast swimmers are going. It's very much conserved. And so the good news is that if swimmers can learn how to execute an effective 6-beat kick in backstroke, they're more likely to learn how to do that across all the different events that they might swim and all the different training intensities that they may use in practice. So while kick timing can seem really complicated, fortunately the finishes of the kick tend to happen at discrete transitions within the stroke itself. So we have a kick happening on the same side when swimmers set up the stroke. We have a kick happening on the opposite side when they execute most of the pull. There's a same side kick when they finish the stroke, and now swimmers are back to the other side. And that entry is typically paired or very closely paired with the opposite leg kick. Then we're on the other side. They're kicking with the same side leg when they set up the stroke. Then they're kicking with the opposite side leg when they're pulling. And then again, kicking with the same side leg as they finish. So while it can seem like there's a lot going on, it can seem that the legs are just moving almost randomly, there is a rhyme and a reason. And once you can see it, it becomes a lot easier to evaluate whether your swimmers are executing effective 6-beat kicks or not. Compared to freestyle and backstroke, kick timing in butterfly is simple. There's only 2 kicks per stroke cycle as opposed to 6. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's any less important. In fact, without effective kick timing, swimming fast butterfly is pretty much impossible. Kick timing is absolutely essential in butterfly. Largely due to the double arm over the water recovery, swimmers have to time their kicks effectively if they want to be able to position their hips correctly, and that allows them to recover the arms over the water with as little resistance as possible. Not only is recovering both arms over the water physically demanding, if done poorly, it creates a ton of resistance, which makes an already difficult stroke that much harder. Effective kicking makes all the difference. The 2 kicks in butterfly need to happen at specific points in the stroke cycle. One kick needs to happen as the hands enter the water, and the second kick needs to finish as the hands begin to exit the water. By timing the kicks correctly, it can help swimmers create more propulsion and, more importantly, position the hips to keep resistance, to keep drag as low as possible. Let's check it out. First, let's take a look at where the kicks are happening, and then we can discuss why it's important to execute the kicks at that time. So one kick is going to happen right there, and so the kick itself is going to finish as the hands are exiting the water. So there's going to be propulsion from the legs, there's going to be propulsion from the arms, and they're going to happen and they're going to finish at the exact same time. We'll talk about why that's important in a second. The other kick is going to happen, so the kick is going to start as the hands enter the water. So if we watch the feet here, you can see that they turn right there, right when the hands enter the water. And so the hands are going to enter, the kick is going to start, and then the kick is going to finish as swimmers reach forward, and then they press a little bit with their chest. So those are the 2 kicks, and that's when they happen, right there at the end of the pull. So the kick is going to finish as the pull finishes, and then upon entry, the kick is going to start right when the hands enter, and it's going to finish as the hands reach forward and the chest presses down. So why is the timing so important? When it comes to the pull, we're going to get a big boost in propulsion here. And so actually, if you look at instantaneous speeds, this is probably the fastest point that any swimmer will ever swim. They can achieve an instantaneous speed that's faster than what's seen in freestyle. But of course, freestyle is faster, and the reason is as soon as this propulsive impulse is over, now there's nothing happening. So one, swimmers are recovering the arms over the water. There's no propulsion with the arms. And two, the legs are recovering, so there's no propulsion with the legs either. So it's really important to get that really big burst, that really big impulse, so that it can carry swimmers through the recovery where they won't be creating any propulsion. So that's one reason why the timing is so important. The second reason is that as swimmers pull, they're going to lift the upper body, and the pull itself can also have a slight sinking effect on the hands. And if swimmers were to try to recover when their head is up, their hips are down, and their hips are lower beneath the surface, it's going to be impossible to get the hands out of the water. So when the kick happens here, you can see the hips are going to lift up there. That's going to get the hands up to the surface of the water without having to lift them out. And then the momentum that's generated at the end of the pull, the hands can just slide out of the water, can just whip around, and it'll be very effortless. Now, if swimmers had to recover the hands when the hips were in this position, when they're a couple inches under the water, they'd have to lift the arms out, they'd have to drag them around, and obviously that is going to be very fatiguing. That's going to make a very difficult stroke that much harder. So it's absolutely critical for the kick to happen as the hands enter, to lift the hips up in the water so that the hands can be smoothly transitioned into the recovery without having to use much muscular effort. So hand speed is really high here, and if the hands are already at the surface of the water, they can just slide out and whip around. So that kick is really, really important. One, it helps facilitate the recovery by getting the hips up, and it helps create a really big impulse of propulsion so that when swimmers transition into the recovery and they don't have any propulsion, they have enough body speed to carry them through that. And this position is going to be easier to manage if there's forward velocity. It's going to be much harder at slower speeds. Now, if we look at the body position here, swimmers at an angle. So if they were to move through the water like that, that's going to create a lot more resistance than if they were horizontal to the water. So following the recovery, they have to get into position. They have to get back into a horizontal position, and that will allow for better alignment, and that allows for less resistance. So the kick here, what it's going to do, you can see it happen. The hips are a little bit lower. The kick is going to be back and down, and if the kick's down, up pop the hips, and very quickly we can go from this position, which is not very aligned, it's creating a lot of drag, and then boom, quickly we can get into a more horizontal position, and that's going to allow swimmers to keep drag lower, and that's going to allow them to swim faster for less effort. And so I'm sure you've seen some swimmers will start to get tired, they fail to get the hips back up in the front of the stroke cycle, and that just makes everything worse. The stroke becomes harder, the fatigue becomes more, and it's just a vicious cycle. So if swimmers can get the hips up, and if they can use the kick to make that happen, they're going to be able to conserve energy, and that means more speed. The second important aspect of this kick timing is that by getting the hips up and then the chest is down, you can see that there's a wave happening through the body, and then when that wave reverses, as he does when he pulls, it goes the other direction, and that creates the potential for a much more powerful pull. So not only are the hips getting up and allowing swimmers to get into a more aligned position, it's also preparing them and giving them the potential to create a more effective pull. So that elevated hip position, the depressed chest position, again, once it's reversed, it allows swimmers to create a lot more propulsion. So those two kicks are really important because it allows swimmers to get their hips up at really important points in the stroke cycle, and it allows them to create more propulsion, which is obviously going to create more speed. So higher hip position, that's going to mean less drag, more propulsion. We have those two together, you get more speed. Different swimmer, different angle, same things are happening. So as we see here, we've got the entry, that starts the kick finishes with a full depression of the chest, and then the beginning of the setup of the stroke, and then as the swimmer pulls through, that kick is going to finish as the hands finish. That's going to get the arms around, and we're back to the beginning. So the kick in the front of the stroke is going to start to happen as the hands enter, and then it's going to finish with the full depression of the chest, reaching fully out in front, starting to set up the stroke, and then as the pull comes through, the finish of the kick and the finish of the hands are going to be tied up. So it's ultimately pretty simple. Doesn't mean it's easy to do, but the timing is very consistent across swimmers. we're going to see, again, that kick happening upon entry, finishing when the chest is fully depressed, setting up the stroke, and then boom, we've got this wave of propulsion that's happening with the upper body and the lower body. Everything finishes at the same time. That gets the hips up. You can see them rise up there, and that gets the hands easily out of the water, over the surface of the water with a lot less effort. And then as you can see, this is not a great position to be in. This isn't a technical flaw. This is just the reality of butterfly. And as the hands come in, boom, the kick goes, the hips come up, and you can see the change in hip position right there. And that's happening, one, as a result of the arms recovering and the chest pressing. And perhaps even more importantly, it's the kick that helps get those hips up. So again, you can see the change in position right there. And we go from a position that is not very streamlined, it's not very aligned, to one that's very aligned. And again, we've now set up the stage for a really effective pull. And you can see here, you can see how she comes up out of that, and that's again going to create a ton of propulsion. And when we add the kick to that, we get a huge burst of propulsion, and that carries her through the recovery and into the next stroke cycle. So one more swimmer here, and so we've got the kick there as the hands enter, and then boom, as the hands exit. So we're going to have the timing of the finish of the kick with the finish of the pull. And as we can see here, the hips go up with the kick, the hands and the feet are finishing at the same time. You can see the hands go right up to the surface of the water, and there's no loss in hand speed. He just kind of slides them out and swings them around. And then as we come across, the hands enter as the feet turn, as the down kick starts. The hips come up as the kick finishes, as the chest presses down. There's a big change in hip position that happens really quickly, and that's going to be driven by the kick. You can see the hips are underwater here, and then boom, they're out of the water after that point. So really important in terms of the timing, and really important in terms of the effectiveness of the kick. So getting the hips up there, and then getting the hips up again there. And one more time from a propulsion standpoint, this sets up the swimmer to really set up the stroke effectively, to really create a lot of leverage on the water as they come up out of that position. And then again, timing the kick and the pull at the end, we're going to get a big burst of propulsion. That's going to carry him through the recovery, which he can get back into the next stroke cycle, maintaining as much speed as possible and maintaining great alignment. Because there's only one kick per stroke cycle, when it comes to kick timing, breaststroke is ultimately the simplest. However, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy to do. Let's take a look at what needs to happen for effective kick timing in breaststroke, and how swimmers need to change that timing when they change how fast they want to swim. More than any other stroke, swimmers tend to struggle with kick timing in breaststroke. They have it, then they lose it. They have it, then they lose it. But just because kick timing is difficult to get right, it doesn't mean that it's particularly complicated. When it comes down to it, it's actually quite simple. What needs to happen is that the arms go and then the legs go. So what I mean by that is that the pull is going to happen when the legs are relatively streamlined, and then the kick is going to happen when the arms are relatively streamlined. Swimming fast is all about propulsion and resistance. So when swimmers are creating propulsion, they also want to be in a position where they're creating as little resistance as possible. When that happens, they go fast. So it's the separation of the pull and the kick that allows swimmers to create a lot of propulsion when they're in positions of relatively low drag. To do that, they have to be really effective with the speed of the arm recoveries and the leg recoveries. In the case of the arm recoveries, they need to be fast so that swimmers can get back into line quickly to execute the kick. And in terms of the kick, the recovery needs to happen fast so swimmers can get into a position to actually kick backwards quickly and do so effectively. So at its core, timing is simple. And when swimmers want to change how fast they're swimming, they simply change the separation of the arms and the legs. The more separation there is, the more space there will be in the stroke. That's going to lead to slower speed due to slower stroke rates. And the faster they want to go, the more they need to shrink that separation until it almost disappears, or in some cases, disappears completely. That allows them to maintain the effectiveness of the pull and the kick while using faster stroke rates. Let's take a look and see it in action. So these swimmers are swimming over 200 meters, and what we're going to see is they're going to execute the pull here while the legs remain in streamline. So right here, the pull, and the pull is completely finished at this point. They're not really creating much propulsion anymore, and you can see the legs remain really long, the legs remain straight, the legs remain in line. And so swimmers are able to execute the pull, create propulsion in a position where they're not creating that much drag, or they're creating as little drag as possible, which allows them to create as much speed as possible. And then they're going to quickly recover the arms, recover the legs, and now they're back into a streamlined position. And as they start to kick back, they're already in a streamlined position for the kick. And that allows them again to create propulsion with the legs here while they're in a streamlined position. And that's again going to maximize the amount of speed that they create. And the key skill to make it all work is after the pull and they start to recover the arms, you're going to see the arm recovery is going to be really aggressive so that they can get back into line quickly. And then the kick recovery, bringing the feet up, setting up the catch of the kick, and then hitting it backwards. That's going to happen fast too. So boom, fast heels, and it's only a couple frames here where the feet start moving and then they're in position to kick backwards. So timing in breaststroke, again, is ultimately simple. We're going to see the arm action here. There's going to be the pull, and that's going to happen while the legs remain in line. And then there's going to be a fast recovery of the arm and the legs. And then again, the kick is going to happen when the arms are in streamline. That allows swimmers to create as much propulsion as possible and do so in positions where they're creating as little resistance as possible. Now, since this is a 200 race, we're going to see more separation between the arms and the legs. So again, as the kick finishes here with this swimmer in front of us right now, there's going to be a pause. She's going to wait, and then she's going to separate, and then she's going to start to execute her pull. And then even with the pull, there's going to be a space here before she really gets into the kick. It's not happening as soon as she finishes the pull. There's a little bit of a delay, and so that allows her to, again, create more space in the stroke. There's more time between the arms and the legs. There's more separation. That's going to allow her to have a lower stroke rate, but she can still use the same timing. She still has the same effective pull, the same effective kick, but she just gets a little bit more rest within the stroke cycle. And so when swimmers glide, again, they're not changing the timing of the stroke in terms of the relationship of the arms and the legs, but what they're doing is they're allowing for a little bit more space between the arm actions and the leg actions in order to get a little bit more rest. And while that will cause a slight loss in speed, they get more recovery and it's a more sustainable stroke, and so it's more effective over 200 meters. Now, if we watch a swimmer over 100 meters, we're going to see the same basic timing, but again, the separation between the arms and the legs is going to be a lot smaller to allow for higher stroke rates. So this is taken from a world record swim over 100 meters, and so he's clearly going as fast as he can, and this is the timing that he's going to use. Already in this first frame here, we can see he's about to execute his kick, and he's already back into a streamline. So boom, he finishes the kick, and then once he starts to apply pressure onto the water with the arms, right about here, you can see that the legs are perfectly in line, everything's straight, and he executes the pull. The pull's pretty much finished here, and he's still in a really good line, and then boom, there's that really fast recovery of the arms, really fast recovery of the legs. They're happening at the same time, and again, that's happening so he can get into a position where he can kick effectively while he's got his upper body in streamline. And so if the arm recovery is really slow here, he's either going to have to slow down the kick, or he's going to have to kick when he's in a poor position. And then if he's slow with the kick recovery here, he's going to be in line, which is good, but he's going to have to slow down the overall stroke rate because it's going to take more time to get into an effective position to kick. So the recoveries need to be really fast, especially in the sprints, because that allows swimmers to maintain effective timing while still using really high stroke rates. And so in the previous swimmers, we saw a lot of separation between the arms and the legs. There was a pretty big glide. We see with this swimmer, there's zero glide at all. So there's very little pause in the front of the stroke, maybe for a split second as he finishes the kick, but even then he's starting to slide his hands out. He hasn't started to create propulsion yet, but he's getting into that position and then immediately moving into the pull. And then the second the pull's over, he's getting right into the kick, and there's zero hesitation there either. And so that glide we saw in the previous swimmers is gone. They're not changing the nature of the timing, they're changing the magnitude of the timing. And so what we're going to see is we'll see more gliding behaviors over longer distances. There's more separation between the arms and the legs. And then again, in this swimmer, there's going to be very little separation between the arms and the legs because he needs to get into this next stroke cycle in order to maintain a really high stroke rate. And again, if he's doing that with good timing, he's going to be able to create just as much propulsion. He's still going to be able to eliminate drag, and that's going to allow him to swim even faster. So taking one more look at it with the 200 swimmers, we're going to see more patience. They're still pretty aggressive with the pull itself. They're aggressive with the kick itself, but the arm recoveries are not quite as aggressive. The leg recoveries are not quite as aggressive. And so there's more space between that propulsive pull right here, between the end of it and then the beginning of the kick. And then after the kick finishes, there's more space, there's more time before the pull begins again. And so those spaces allow swimmers to rest. And when they're maintaining really great alignment, like right here, they can still maintain a lot of their speed. And so now they're not going to swim quite as fast. They can still swim pretty fast, and it's a sustainable speed. So that allows them to be more successful over longer distances. So again, still same timing, pull and then kick. But in this case, after the pull finishes right there, once there's kind of more or less no more propulsion at that point, there's more space between that point and when the kick starts. And then after the kick finishes, there's more space before the arms start. If we go back to our 100 swimmer, there's very little space after the finish of the kick before the beginning of the pull. And as soon as the pull finishes, those recoveries are super fast so that he can get into the kick as well. And even though this space, the separation is less, the actual timing, the kick is happening when the upper body's in line, as we can see here. And then the pull is going to happen when the legs are in line. That allows him to create as much propulsion with as little resistance as possible, which allows him to create as much speed as possible. Kick timing is typically associated with the relationship between what the arms and the legs are doing. In underwater kicking, the arms aren't directly involved in creating propulsion. That doesn't mean that kick timing isn't relevant. The legs aren't performing the right action at the right time relative to what the rest of the body is doing. Swimmers are going to really struggle to create a ton of propulsion and a ton of speed. Well, traveling under the water is typically referred to as dolphin kicking or underwater dolphin kicking or underwater kicking. It's a bit of a misnomer because it overemphasizes the role of the legs in creating speed. In reality, it involves a full body wave of undulation that travels from the top of the body down to the bottom of the body. And as the wave travels down the body, it gets bigger and faster, ultimately allowing swimmers to move their legs over a large range of motion at high speed, which allows them to create a lot of propulsion. If that wave isn't timed appropriately, and if the movement of the legs aren't timed appropriately, it's a lot more difficult to take advantage of that undulation. And as a result, swimmers are going to create a lot less speed. Let's take a look at that wave, how it travels down the body, and why the timing of it is critical for helping swimmers create as much speed as possible as they travel underwater. So as swimmers are moving through the water while they're underwater kicking, the body is going to move in a wave, and the wave is going to travel down the body. And so regardless of how much movement is happening in the hands and the upper body, that's ultimately where the wave starts. So if we watch this swimmer here, what we're going to see is the hands move down, and then at this point, they're at their lowest point, and then the head's at its lowest point, and then the chest's at its lowest point, and then the stomach's at its lowest point, and then the hips are at the lowest point, and then the thighs are at the lowest point, then the knees are at the lowest point, then the shins are moving down, and then the foot travels down. And so that's the wave that's happening that's ultimately going to allow for a bigger range of motion with the kick. If the knees are just bending, if the swimmers are just kicking and they're not doing so within the timing and rhythm of the entire body and that wave of undulation, they're going to create a lot less speed. So if we watch that wave again, the hands travel down, they're at their lowest point, and then the head's at the lowest point, then the chest, then the stomach, then the hips, then the thighs, and the knees, and then the shins, and then the feet travel through. And so that creates a whipping action. And then the final movement right here, if you watch the feet, that's the snap through, where the final action of the wave creates a whip-like action, and then it snaps through with the feet. And so again, the feet, the kick timing is in concert with the whole wave of the body. If those two things aren't synced up, it's not going to happen. And so you'll have swimmers that kind of lose their connection. They struggle to maintain the wave, especially when they get tired. And then all of a sudden, the feet are just kind of moving, and they're not doing so in concert with the rest of the body, which means they're going to create a lot less propulsion, a lot less speed. So one thing to pay attention to, let's take a look at the amount of undulation, the amount of range of motion that's happening through the hands. And so relatively speaking, it's tight. Now this particular swimmer tends to use a bigger range of motion than other swimmers do when they're underwater kicking. But if we compare the hands to the legs, we'll see that the hand movement is relatively tight. And so if we watch the legs, they're coming up. That's about the high point there. And so the feet are well past the back of his body. And then as they come through, the feet end up well in front of the body. And so there's a much bigger range of motion through the feet as compared to the hands. If we watch the hands right now, they're going to be a lot tighter with the undulation, and the feet are going to be a lot bigger. And second, pay attention to the speed of the hands. As the hands are moving, they're moving in a relatively controlled manner. But then when we see the feet moving, they're moving up fast, they're moving down fast. And so again, the wave gets bigger as it travels down the body, and then the wave also gets faster as it travels down the body. And when looking for the wave, I find it most helpful to look for the down points and where the lowest point in the kick is. And so right now it's right at the thighs, and then the knees drop forward, and then the shins drop forward. And then as that wave finishes, the next wave has already started, and you'll see that the chest is low here, then the stomach's low, then the hips, then the thighs, then the knees, and then the feet again. And so again, that wave keeps traveling down the body over and over and over again. It's getting bigger and faster. And when that happens effectively, that's when swimmers can create a lot of speed. Another interesting thing is the hands are lifting, so too are the legs. And so then as the hands start to move down, the feet start to move down. And so again, there's timing here with the upper body and the lower body. So there's going to be multiple waves traveling down the body. And so when one wave finishes, the next wave is already starting. And so again, there's timing here with the lifting of the hands and the lifting of the feet. And then when they reverse at the same time. Again, there's that wave, it's traveling down, and there's going to be some symmetry to it. So one last time, the hands are at their down point, the chest is at the down point, the hips are at the down point, thighs, knees, and then the feet are traveling through. And when that wave finishes, the hands have already reached their down point of that subsequent wave. The chest is now the lowest point. The hands are moving up to get ready for the next wave. And likewise, the legs are moving up to capture the next wave as well. And then that travels down, and then boom, swimmers execute their kick. So the timing of the kick absolutely matters in underwater kicking. However, rather than being tied to what the arms are doing in terms of creating propulsion, it's tied into the rhythm and the wave of the body. So if we watch another swimmer here, what we'll see is the hands travel down, the chest is at the low point, then the stomach's at the low point, hips are at the low point, knees, shins, and then the feet follow through. And like with the previous swimmer, when the hands start to lift, the legs start to lift, and then boom, we're starting into the next wave. So just like with the previous swimmer here, it starts with the hands, they press down, the head presses down, the chest presses down, the hips press down, the thighs press down, knees, shins, feet. And relative to the other swimmer, this swimmer is using a relatively tight upper body movement, but you can see the same wave action is still there. And what's interesting is just like with the other swimmer, this swimmer is going to have a big range of motion with the kick, and it's going to be pretty much just as big as the previous swimmer, even though that she's starting with a much smaller wave. And so those waves still get bigger, they still get faster as they travel down the body. So while it's absolutely critical to hold water with the feet, that's going to be a key component of effective underwater kicking, it also has to be paired with effective timing and effective rhythm of the body, because if it's not, swimmers aren't going to be able to generate the force needed to move that water quickly and over a big range of motion. And again, that all starts with the upper body. The upper body movement can be bigger or it can be smaller. However, it does need to have the wave action starting there with the hands traveling down the body from the chest to the hips, to the knees, and then to the feet. And so that movement needs to happen regardless of how big it starts, but it needs to get bigger, it needs to get faster, and it has to happen at the right time. And just like with our previous swimmer, the finish of the kick happens there. The hands start to lift up, the feet start to lift up, and then they both reverse at the same time. And so again, it's that wave, and there's some symmetry in the waves. There's going to be multiple high points, and there's going to be multiple low points, and those are going to be synced up. So when the hands are low, the feet tend to be low, and when the hands are up, the feet tend to be up as well. One more swimmer here. So we see the hands press down, then the chest, then the stomach, then the hips, then the thighs, then the knees, and then the feet, and they travel all the way through. So the same wave-like action is happening. The wave is traveling down the body, and we can see the hand movement is relatively tight here, but look how big the kick action is, look how big the foot action is. As we talked about with the previous swimmers, the hands and the feet are going to lift up at the same time, more or less, and they're going to push down at the same time. But again, because that wave is a lot tighter at the hands and at the upper body than it is at the lower body, and it's happening together, the feet are going to necessarily have to move a lot faster and over a lot bigger range of motion. And so again, that's where the kicking power is going to be expressed into the water, but it's going to be generated with the upper body. The wave is going to be started at the upper body, and it's going to get bigger and faster as it travels through, and that's what's going to create propulsion. It's not only about the down kick here, the same principles apply to the up kick, and there are swimmers that can generate speed during that portion of the kick. And so it's the same idea here. That wave travels down, it travels fast, and that's going to result in big fast movements with the legs moving in both directions, and that can create propulsion in both directions. So again, it all comes down to timing, it comes down to rhythm, and it comes down to creating a wave starting in the upper body, letting it travel down the body, getting bigger and faster as it goes, and that allows swimmers to apply a lot of force into the water over a big range of motion, which helps them create speed. For more on how to develop rhythm in underwater kicking, check out the video below.